Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Kardec Radio, where we are here to nourish our souls. I am Norah, Brasil, the host of this program, Pages of Hope. Thank you so much. We had to do a live today due to some technical difficulties, but I'm excited to be here today, sharing this beautiful moment. Um, and thank you so much. So today we're actually going to read um, an article, and I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to check to see if you can see that actually. Give me 1 minute. And I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to check to see if you can see that actually. Give me 1 minute. And I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to check to see if you can see that. Thank you so much, friends. Give me 1 minute. Let me see. And I'm going to share my screen here. So hopefully you can see, dear friends. 1 minute. It doesn't look. And I'm going to share my screen here. Yeah. So hopefully you can see, dear friends. It doesn't look like you can see my screen. Okay. Hopefully you can see, dear friends. It doesn't look like you can see. Okay, no problem. We will go impromptu. The beautiful thing about being a teacher, we get these things. So we're actually going to talk about the author of Sherlock Holmes. And I remember sitting down in my classroom, and the teacher was talking about, Sherlock Holmes. And I was fascinated by all of this kind of stuff. And long story short, I went on with my life. I continued. I know there have been all these series, and there have been all these things. Thank you, sweet Vanessa and Daisy. My share screen did not work, so I am going to impromptu, but thank you so much. So about a month ago, I was actually in a Brazilian group. They were studying Spiritism. And I always remember that one of the sisters actually put there about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, that he was a spiritual man, that he was part of the team. And I was just in like, what did you just say? To me, that was very new. So in the Spiritist magazine today, edition 26, there is a little excerpt. I cannot share the screen with you guys, but in this excerpt, all that is saying is that in London, in the British Museum, in 20, no, you can click on the icon where it's on the screen share. Oh, yeah. Thank you. You are the best. Okay, save. Hold up, guys. All right. Is it showing, Daisy? No, maybe. So in this article, dear friends, it's okay. Oh, it is showing now. Great. Okay, even better. Great. So in this article, it's going to show us a little bit about Conan Doyle and what he does. So I'm going to have to check again because it's my first time live, dear friends. So thank you for your patience. But it will be okay. Okay, I don't know. There it is. I can see it. Okay. So, gonna get Leon Denis in this awesome book, Spiritism and the Arts. He has a section entitled Literature and Eloquence. And in here, he quotes this beautiful thing. It says, already here below, one can notice that a writer or an orator who studies harmony proportionately increases the resources of his or her imagination, penetration of things, and facility of expressing them. Have not some individuals of genius declared that their most beautiful works were conceived at hours of ecstasy, induced by the hearing of the distant echoes of some celestial concerts? That is to say, of the infinite orchestra of the worlds. And today, friends, this is what Conan represents. That is him, this beautiful voice, this echo of literary works that are beyond anything that I thought. And these are just some statistics that were found in this website, arthurconandoyle.com. And in here, I'll give you some numbers. And basically, it says there are 258 fiction stories, of which 62 have Sherlock Holmes. Okay, there are over 1,000 essays and articles. He wrote over 1,000 letters, 106 poems, 21 plays, over 100 interviews, and he has over 100 of lectures that he either attended or he was an actual lecturer. But what's most amazing, dear friends, is the adaptations that came out of his work, right? Look at all these numbers, over 1,200 adaptations on screen, radio, over 3,000 on stage, comics, even video games, right? Probably because of Sherlock Holmes. And there's even a podcast that is called Doings of Doyle. And in this podcast, they talk about him even further. So we're going to talk about a few little things about him that just caught the attention. And the first one is that he used to love writing letters. And this is super nice because it actually reminded me of, maybe for you too, Chico Xavier. And he would also be very detailed, take his time to write letters. Well, Arthur Conan Doyle would also be very particulate and very sweet, and he would take his time to answer to others. And this particular letter, and there's so many in this website, if you ever have time, dear friends, love that he chose the little details of the paper with the hotel, and all of those are the things that are so important for us too, right? Because it actually tells us so much about ourselves. And likewise, we're knowing so much about Conan just by those little details. And in this particular little note, he's saying, hey, have you read The Land of Mist? And it's talking about spiritualism, right? Because his work after Sherlock Holmes took a completely, not a different direction, friends, but like like a little, like an addition, a better resource. Like he outgrew Sherlock Holmes, and so now a lot of his works are part of the spiritualism that he gained. So this was one. This is another letter here. Okay, this one here. It's actually talking about cyanide experiment. I did a quick Google, and in here, it basically, people are saying that they used to use this cyanide to try to research, to see if people could see the dead or the spirits, as we would say in Spiritism. And so that they would try to do experiments where they would use this combination of chemicals and try to see like different dyes and stuff like that. And of course, it's not mainstream science, so it didn't go very far with this. But that's again another aspect of Conan Doyle, of how he was more than just Sherlock Holmes. It was actually very spiritual. And then a little thing that to catch our attention, to also perceive his sweetness and his gentleness, was when he says, order anything you wish and put it down to me. I was like, wow. I mean, that is charity and science and just him being himself, right? So there's also a website that the British Library has. Because of copyright issues, dear friends, it's very difficult for us to sometimes put videos. So that's why at Kardec Radio, a lot of us, we make our own videos and stuff. But if you're ever curious, you can actually even Google and you can hear his voice. They captured him after disincarnated. He left a beautiful and inspiring messages, confirming that all the work that he believed and trusted, and that there is life after death. It's a very beautiful message. But the biggest book here is The Wanderings of a Spiritualist. And I'm going to see if I'm able to share my screen for the book. I hope so. I hope so because hey, Miss Linda, hi. Are you guys able to see my screen? Yes, Daisy, maybe. All right. Okay. So I have to check to see if you can see this now, dear friends. Give me 1 minute. Just because it's my first time doing this live, and I appreciate your time. Let me see, because this book, it's fantastic. It is, yes, you can see it. All right. So I won't read the whole thing, but I want to share with you how he was. He says here, this is an account of the wanderings of a spiritualist, geographical, and speculative. Should the reader have no interest in psychic things, if indeed any human being can be so foolish as to not be interested in his own nature and fate, then this is the place to put the book down, right? It were it were better also to end the matter now if you have no patience with a go as you please style of narrative. I mean, he meant business. Like, if you're gonna be here to, criticize, in other words, you don't believe, you're being skeptical, you can stay and watch, but be advised that this book is it's a part of me. It's like a part of his experience, right? So very different, because in a lot of the interviews that he did or that he wrote, we were able to capture that a lot of people still expected that Sherlock Holmes. And now he's trying to detach from that and say, this is not a fiction story. This is real. And right. And he says here, he continues, for 2 hours, my wife and I had sat within, listening to the whispering voices of the dead, voices which are so full of earnest life and of desperate endeavors to pierce the barriers of our dual senses. They had quivered and wavered around us, given us pet names, sweet, sacred things. And then he continues saying, may God, if they only knew, if they only knew, right? The wish to serve was strong upon us both. God had given us wonderful signs, and they were surely not for ourselves alone. Just this line here, serving others, wanting others to know about these voices, right? These things that he was starting to experience is wonderful. And he also ends up even going to Australia. Okay, so that's where we're gonna leave up here, because if you are interested, dear friend, it would be great for you to take this on. I haven't finished the book again because I just found out about this, but it's absolutely it's fascinating. When we find something, I also have to say, as American, being in this community and finding things too that we already exposed to, that we already know about, and then we can come, and then Spiritism just enhances that. It's beyond. And I'm just thinking, how am I going to share this with my students? I have to be very tactful, but they need to know that there's more to this man here. And I always encourage my students to look at the biographies of the authors, right? All right. So let's go back here. We're going to read a poem. All right. We're going to read a poem by him. It's called Fate, because here at Pages of Hope, we always try to share a poem, or we grab a poem from the Spiritist magazine. So here we go. We're going to do this live. All right. Fate. I know not how I know, and yet I know. I do not plan to go, and yet I go. There is some dim force propelling, gently guiding and compelling, and a faint voice ever telling, this is so. The path is rough and black, dark as night, and there lies a fairer track in the light. Yet I may not shirk or shrink, for I feel the hands that link as they guide me on the brink of the height. Bigots blame me in their wrath. Let them blame me, praise or blame. The fated path is the same. If I droop upon my mission, there is still that saving vision, iridescent and Elysian, tipped in flame. It was granted me to stand by my dead. I have felt the vanished hand on my head, on my brow the vanished lips, and I know that death's eclipse is a floating veil that slips or is shed. When I hear the well known voice, Son of mine, should I silently rejoice or incline to strike harder as a fighter, that the heavy might be lighter and the gloomy might be brighter at the sign? Great guide, I ask you still, wherefore I, but if it be thy will that I try, trace my pathway among men, show me how to strike and when, take me to the fight and then, oh, nigh. This, uh, some of you probably are captured. I love poetry, and it's a very straightforward poem. We're not going to break it down. Today, we're just exposing ourselves to different ways that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle expressed himself, being part of this Spiritist teamwork. But here we have some glimpse of how he's already advanced in his time and knowledgeable, right? Talking about, it was granted for me to stand by my dead and felt the vanished hand, right? Like he had an idea, death's eclipse. Like it wasn't just death, like there was like they're coming, they're still alive. But interestingly, he does talk about his son, because his son disincarnated, and that's where got him started. So that's what this is referring to. And then the last stanza, great guide. How many of us talk to our mentors and ask the mentors for help in our everyday lives, right? And so this poem, even though it was written in 1919, we're 2021, and it's still so in sync. If we allow ourselves to look at the literature with an open heart, because poetry is like that, dear friends. So I'm gonna check now. We're gonna end our program with this video, not that one. All right, so this video here, it's a little, these are clips of his life, and get a better glimpse of him. Excuse me. And the words that he's saying, they're an actual transcript from one of his interviews. Due to copyright issues, we cannot show the actual YouTube videos, but we can look at the pictures and listen to his voice and get an idea. Okay, hopefully it works.
Curiously enough, my first experiences in that direction were just about the time when Sherlock Holmes was being built up in my mind. That would be about the year 1886 and 1887. So nobody can say that I've formed my opinions on psychic matters very hastily. It was just 41 years now since I wrote a signed article upon the subject, which appeared in a magazine called Light, so that I put myself on record. During these 41 years, I never lost any opportunity of reading and studying and of experimenting on this matter. People ask me, will I write any more Sherlock Holmes stories? I certainly don't think it's at all probable. As I grow older, the psychic subject always grows in intensity and one becomes more earnest upon it. And I should think that my few remaining years will probably be devoted much more in that direction than in the direction of literature. Nonetheless, of course, I haven't abandoned writing. One has to earn one's living, but my principal thoughts are that I should extend, if I can, that knowledge which I have on psychic matters and spread it as far as I can to those who have been less fortunate. I suppose I've sat with more mediums, good and bad, and indifferent, than perhaps any living being. Anyhow, a larger variety, because I've traveled so much all over the world, and wherever I've gone, either in Australia, America, or South Africa, the best and the worst that can be had in that direction was put at my disposal. Therefore, when people come along and contradict me, who've had no experience at all, read little, and perhaps never been to a séance, you can imagine that I don't take their opposition very seriously. When I talk on this subject, I'm not talking about what I believe, I'm not talking about what I think, I'm talking about what I know. There's an enormous difference, believe me, between believing a thing and knowing a thing, and talking about things that I've handled, that I've seen, that I've heard with my own ears. And always, mind you, in the presence of witnesses, I never risk hallucinations. I usually, in most of my experiments, have had 6, 8, or 10 witnesses, all of whom have seen and heard the same things that I have done. Gradually I became more and more convinced on the matter as I studied year in, year out, but it was only in the time of the war. when all these splendid young fellows were disappearing from our view, when the whole world was saying, what's become of them, where are they, what are they doing now? Have they dissipated into nothing, or are they still the grand fellas that we used to know? It was only at that time that I realized the overpowering importance to the human race of knowing more about this matter. Then it was that I flung myself more earnestly into it, and that I felt the highest purpose that I could possibly devote the remainder of my life to, was trying to bring across to other people something of that knowledge and assurance which I had acquired myself. Certainly the results have justified me. I am quite sure I could fill a room of my house with the letters that I have received from people, telling me of the consolation which my writings on this subject, and my lectures on this subject, have given to them. How they have once more heard the sound of a vanished voice and felt the touch of the vanished hand. And that is the grandest work, I think, that a man could do. I've only been a humble instrument of the hands of Providence in spreading this truth, but it has taken such root that now I know that it's only a question of time before the all world shares the same knowledge which I have myself. But don't for one moment suppose that I am taking it upon myself to say that I am the inventor of spiritualism, or that I am even the principal exponent of it. There are many great mediums, many great psychical researchers, investigators of all sorts. All that I can do is to be a gramophone on the subject. To go about, to meet people face to face, to try and make them understand that this thing is not the foolish thing which is so often represented, but that it really is a great philosophy, and is, I think, the basis of all religious improvement in the future of the human race. Well, goodbye.
All right, and this presentation, all the images have been again from retrieved from this encyclopedia. We don't even have any words. I mean, just by seeing his pictures and his life, that is the Spiritism itself. How he's so also very close to his family and always finding the time. I'm just like, how did you find the time to do all that? And he was also a doctor, which I was, wow. But all right, dear friends. So
Curious.
To end this program today, here we have this beautiful picture on the left-hand side. And this is actually faiths, different people at a peaceful conference. So we have different beliefs of people that are standing there. And there is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, right, bringing in the spiritualism. And this is how this is connected with what Leon Denis says. He says here, the real merit, whether of the writer or the speaker, is to make people think, to instill in souls a noble and holy enthusiasm, to raise them to the radiant heights where they perceive the vibrations of divine thought in supreme communion. And this is what it is, a writer that is able to sit there and bring different groups of people. This is back in the early 1900s. Now that's a writer with vibrations of divine thought, just like Leon Denis shared with us, our dear friend. So that is today's beautiful lesson. Let me thank you so much for being here today. Once again, thank you, dear sister Daisy and Vanessa. Thank you, Linda and Robbie. Thank you, dear friends, for being here, being patient. And if you are interested, just go to the author Conan Doyle Encyclopedia, and in movies, you will be able to actually see lots of live video streaming. And all right, we'll see you again next week, next time here Thursday. Thank you so much. Many blessings, and thank you, spirits. Until next time, God bless.